But let's move on to our next segment. And since we're talking about a book that came out a while ago, this segment is our Star Wars Rewind. All right, and today we are talking about Dooku Jedi Lost. It's a great book by Cavan Scott, who's one of the architects of the High Republic. He has one of the new High Republic books coming out in a week or so, The Rising Storm. Can't wait to dive deep into that. But today we're talking Dooku Jedi Lost. So for you, because you read this book or listened to it before I did, so this came out as an audio drama, right? Was it an audio play? Do you know the exact phrasing? Is it an audio drama, audio play?
A lot of people call it an audiobook. I call it an audio drama.
Okay.
Because audiobooks are usually read by one person with maybe one or two other people doing voices for certain characters, where an audio drama is full production, where you have multiple people. It actually has a cast. So I count it as an audio drama. A lot of people call it an audiobook. I think the technical term is a audio drama.
Yeah, and I do think you're right, because this is, when you read it as a print form like I did, it's basically a play. It tells you all the characters, who's talking, what the setting is, any background noises. It's very descriptive, like an audio drama would be, or a play that you would watch. So real quick, before reading this book, were you a Count Dooku fan? What made you say, yeah, I'm gonna dive into this book or this audio drama when it came out?
So one of the stories I always wanted is I wanted more stories featuring Count Dooku and Yoda. I wanted that because Count Dooku, even in Legends, and I always have to put a disclaimer, I am still reading Legends, so I have to be very familiar. But even in Legends, they really didn't dive into his character in a lot of depth. I mean, obviously he pops up in these other stories, and he's in the Clone Wars, and we see him as a Sith Lord, but we really didn't dive into his youth, where he came from, his background, his training with Yoda, how he was master to Qui-Gon and their relationship. So this was it wasn't the exact story, because it didn't dive into these particular stories as deep as I would have liked. Like, it would have been awesome to have a whole book about Qui-Gon and Count Dooku and their relationship. Or vice versa with Yoda and Count Dooku. We get bits and pieces of those stories in it, but it was still a story about a character that even in Legends there wasn't a whole lot about. Before then, it was really kind of hard to be a Count Dooku fan, because again, there wasn't much about him. Just the Clone Wars that we really knew about. It was kind of hard to really get attached to him, because he's an old man at this point in time. I believe canonically he's in his 80s. So you have this whole life that you don't know nothing about, and you can like him, you could be attached to him, but there's a whole lot of mystery, because even Palpatine, we see him later in life, but with the Dark Plagueis book, we see more of his life. Count Dooku never really got that. So like I said, I'm a prequel baby, so any stories that connect to the prequels or take place in the prequels, I am really right away excited for. So when it was announced in 2019, I was really excited for it. And you have Ventress, and I love Ventress.
Yeah, I mean, Ventress, one of those characters created for the animation, has just took a life of her own, and everyone loves her, and they've done a great job with her, and she's great in this book also. I thought we were going to get a little more with her, but it was really focused on Count Dooku and his childhood, from being an initiate in the Jedi Temple, and then as a Padawan to Yoda, and then he has his mentor, this other Jedi, Line Costana. That relationship was great. And yes, seeing Count Dooku, I like Count Dooku from Attack of the Clones, from the Clone Wars, but wasn't that big of a fan. So that's probably why I didn't pick the book or the audio drama when it came out. But I only heard great things about it. So reading this book, and not only did we learn a lot about Dooku growing up, but also life inside the Jedi Temple for these younger Padawans, which is something we've never seen before. And I found that very interesting, very engaging, seeing this lightsaber tournaments that he was going to, so a master could pick his Padawan apprentice, the different houses or clans that they had. He's part of the Hawk Bat clan, and there's like two or three more clans out there. It made it feel like this Hogwarts of sorts, like this Harry Potter type of life out there that we've never seen in Star Wars before. And I do hope that we see more of that, even a TV show, if it's animated or whatever. Seeing that life of younger Jedi as they're growing up inside the Jedi Temple was very interesting, and one of my favorite parts of this book. Did you enjoy that part, seeing that Jedi life inside the temple for younger Jedi?
Oh yeah, because one of my favorite books, I mean, obviously I didn't read all of them, but growing up, I am the Jedi Apprentice generation.
Okay.
For people who do not know, Jedi Apprentice is a book series done by Judy Watson that tells the relationship between a young Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn, and how their relationship gets tightened up and how it originally started, and we get to see a little bit of inside the Jedi Temple and Obi-Wan's training and how Qui-Gon picked him, and we get to see that relationship, and we get to see a little bit of that prequel trilogy side of the universe and stuff like that. So yeah, it was really great to see that, and it was great world building as well, because not only did we get to see inside the Jedi Temple and their policies and all that sort of thing, but we also got to see what the universe was like before the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
And when I originally, no, I'm trying to think here. When I originally read it, that was before I read Dark Plagueis. So it was my first time really seeing that outside of the Jedi Apprentice books that I here and there that I read when I was younger. So, and I would assume that for many people, especially those who are new to Star Wars and like you and I decided to jump into the extended universe, that was probably their first time seeing that side too.
Yeah, because I haven't read those first books that you mentioned. I haven't read those, but seeing this world inside from the eyes of a younger Jedi is very interesting, because we're used to seeing the in the movies Anakin, Obi-Wan, and all that. We see the Jedi Temple from their eyes, but seeing it from the younger kids, not even Padawans at this point, just initiate, getting in trouble, having their little groups, always the rivalries going, was very interesting. This kind of growing of age kind of story for Dooku. We see Sifo Dyas also, that was only a mention in Attack of the Clones. He has, I think, one episode in Clone Wars maybe, and then he's really featured here as Dooku's best friend. He's having all these visions and premonitions of the future. The Jedi Council, we see how they start. Forget about it. Don't mess with it. We don't want to deal with it. And we see how the council starts kind of that downhill that we see in the prequels. But also, this book is told through different story points or different points of views, I guess, and different timelines. We have Asajj Ventress looking at all these recordings from Dooku's early life, while at the same time she's chasing down Dooku's sister. We find out that he has a sister, and Ventress is tasked with finding her. Did you enjoy this back and forth between the stories, or was it a little bit confusing keeping track of it? For me, I did enjoy the back and forth, especially because we learned also a lot about Ventress. But did you enjoy this back and forth in the timelines?
I would have to say that before I dive into that, is this book is Count Dooku's book, but it serves more than one purpose, because we do get to learn more about Dooku's life, his origin, his family, but we also dive into Ventress' origin when it comes to how she became, in canon, into the services of Count Dooku and her past. Like, we get to see a little bit of that in the Clone Wars, so it kind of like served a little bit as her origin too. Now, her story is similar as it was in Legends when it comes to how Dooku came across it, but with a little bit twist or whatever, because the story takes place shortly after she comes into the service of Count Dooku. She still has burns from the lightning from their first encounter. And another thing is it expands on Sifo Dyas.
Yes.
So it is Count Dooku's story, but it has a lot of... For me, it is the canon version of Dark Plagueis.
Hmm.
where it is a book that expands upon the prequel trilogy that answers a lot of questions. I am not in love with Dark Plagueis for another issue, but you can definitely see the relationship between it. It's two books that takes place before the prequel trilogy. It connects to the prequel trilogy. It answers a lot of questions that we have about the prequel trilogy, and it just so to me, it's like the canon version of Darth Plagueis focusing on different characters.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's about those three characters. Back to your original question. The first time I listened to the audio drama, it was a little bit distracting, being like, okay,
Okay.
what timeline are we in? We're jumping back and forth. But I really like the setting. But
Hmm.
it's another thing that canon does is it tells stories of a story being told inside of a story, and that allows them flexibility of uh yeah of to tell it. It's like if there's any contradiction, it's like no, this person was telling a story.
Hmm.
They,
Yeah.
they obviously didn't remember it right or whatever. That's just again how they tell stories. It allows them more flexibility. However, I still really enjoyed it, but it's also like really frustrating because it's like okay, that didn't happen. Well, they was telling the story. Uh, what really got annoying or just distracting is when Ventress was watching the journal of
Hmm.
Dooku telling the story. So it was a
Okay.
story inside a
Yeah.
story, Inception level.
Yeah, I do. I get how that can be confusing just reading about. I mean, listening to it. But I did enjoy learning a lot about Ventress because we know Ventress from Clone Wars is this great assassin out there. There's so much to her or how she came to that point. She was sold off by the Night Sister, then became a slave to this other person. Then her master Kainarek kind of breaks her free, but really didn't train her as the other Jedi would. Was never taken to the temple and go through the same Jedi process that Dooku came took, and she kind of is jealous at one point about not being in those Jedi tournaments. And then seeing how broken down she is, she's having these conversations with the ghost of her dead master, and he's trying to tell her, you can escape, you don't need to be here right now. And she just feels so threatened by Dooku that she can't run away. So it's this character that we see her in the Clone Wars as this menace, but it's also she's been beaten down to a pulp where that's the only thing that's left of her. And it does humanize her a little bit. It also Dooku when he's growing up, but it makes you feel bad for Ventress and everything that she's went through. And by the end of the book, I know we're jumping in and it doesn't matter, we're just kind of talking general. She's first tasked with finding Dooku's sister, and by the end, yeah, I told you to find her so you could kill her for me because I don't want her revealing my secrets to the Jedi or to the Republic. And then she just does it without question. And it's this character that we kind of feel for just by having her read or go through Dooku's story, but also her story in this book is it made her more sympathizing, at least for myself. Did you feel something like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Ventress is one of those characters that is always on the knife's edge. Like you always
Mm-hmm.
could feel like at any moment before she actually leaves Dooku, that she could walk away from this. She always felt like she was a character on the edge. She
Yeah.
wasn't as committed as a Savage Opress
Mm-hmm.
or a Maul Dooku. She always felt like she was on this edge. She felt very relatable. She felt like obviously she's a villain. She does horrible things. I mean, she's a freaking assassin.
Yeah.
But she always felt like somebody who you could be friends with, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, just don't
Uh,
make her mad, but yes.
yeah. She. At least that's the vibe I get. I don't know what that says about me, but when it comes to the conversation that she has with her former master, I am always I commit to the idea that in Star Wars canon, Qui-Gon Jinn is the first one to go into the Force,
Mhm.
without being able to come into a Force ghost. So when I was listening to it, I was turned off by it at first because I'm like he shouldn't be around because we know that Qui-Gon was the first one
Yeah.
to do it. So I always took it that it was her conscious, and
Yeah,
then
of course.
when she finally gives into the dark side and kills Dooku's sister, he's gone.
Hmm.
So it is. I always took it that it was, and if you listen to how he talks to somebody who is recounting stuff that she already knew, and where
Of
there
course.
was holes there was holes in his memory too. So I
Hmm.
always took it as her conscious, or the force manifesting as her conscious, where he was telling her stuff that she already knew, maybe
Yes.
has forgotten, but it wasn't this like thing. It's like, oh, I'm going to tell you something that you didn't know. If that makes any sense. So I always
Yeah.
took it that it was her conscious.
Yeah. And you're absolutely correct. It's I know I said with her former master's ghost. I think that's the way they cannot say it's talking to the ghost, but yeah, it is of course her consciously trying to talk herself through everything. But it's very interesting. Again, learning more about Ventress this way, and then like you mentioned, we learn more about Sifo Dyas. We also learn a little bit about Dooku's first apprentice, Rael Averos, that we met in Claudia Grace Master and Apprentice. He's here and also give us a little bit more background. We get a little bit, not too much, with Qui-Gon Jinn. Hopefully, if they do a follow-up to this story, then we can get that story of Dooku and Qui-Gon Jinn kind of growing up, going through that relationship. But we also start seeing how the Jedi and the Council at this point is already on the downturn. We see them telling Dooku and Sifo Dyas and Lene Costana, don't worry about Sifo Dyas' visions. We're not going to do anything about it. They were late trying to save that planet that was going to burn in the storm. Thousands of people died because the Jedi didn't act properly. They're telling Dooku to suppress his emotions when he found out that he had a family out there. And then there's corruption inside the council because one of their members had a son, had a kid that's now a Jedi. So we start seeing that the Jedi are not these holy people that we believed. And by the time we get to the prequels, they're already too far gone, and Palpatine is able to do things right under their nose. But I did enjoy seeing this part of how the Jedi Council, even Yoda, which I love, was already, dude, you gotta listen to the young kids. They're telling you something. But it's cool seeing also that the Jedi Council already going that downward path.
Yeah, it was definitely really getting that. It was definitely interesting seeing that perspective and that side. I mean, obviously we saw it in other stories, but being inside of that when it was like 50 years before the prequel trilogy and that the dynamic and stuff, and it also shows the Republic too because we saw how you had the incident with the Bacca where you had people that were more concerned about the loss of profits than they were of
Yeah.
human life, and it just shows it subconsciously built into Dooku's disillusionment
Mhm.
disillusionment with not only the Jedi but with the Republic too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And that just slowly pushing him to that separatist side because he sees the Jedi and the Republic not really helping everyone that they could help. The Bacta, yeah, okay, that's profit. No, but look all the people that might die. We weren't here on time. If we follow what Saifo is letting us know, we can help more people out there in the Outer Rim or everywhere. He starts to get disillusioned with it, and we don't see basically anything with it on this book, but there's a little bit of Palpatine starting to manipulate Dooku a little bit. So we can see how he kind of ages toward that end. So all in all, I really enjoyed Dooku Jedi Lost. I wish I had gotten it sooner and probably heard the audio drama because it seems to be maybe the better experience. So I did enjoy reading it a lot. There were a lot of High Republic kind of winks and nods, I think. There's mentions of a Master Trennis. That's one of the fallen 20 of the 20 Jedi that are lost to the dark side. And we know there's a Keith Trennis in the High Republic. So is it the same character? So yeah, can't wait to see if there are any more connections. Really enjoyed this book. Anything else you might want to say about Count Dooku Jedi Lost or just Dooku in general before we kind of close this show up today?
So another another one of the reasons why I really like this book is Count Dooku. He was a hero. We
Hmm.
see him when he's the villain of the story, but he's already have lived a full life.
Yeah.
He was at least when he turned to the dark side completely. He was probably in his 70s at least. You figure that he probably Even then, even if he turned in his 60s, he was an old man. He lived a life.
Mhm.
He
Yeah.
was a hero. He was renowned. He was a master. He had not only one apprentice but two. He was a good man.
Hmm.
And also in this book, we see that he was the Anakin Skywalker of his
Yeah,
generation.
that's right.
He was a prodigy. He was
Hmm.
the best of his class, of his generation. He fell victim due to his family ties. It's really striking how similar his story is with Anakin, and how tragic it is too, because he was a good man,
Hmm.
and it was his corruption to the dark side, being exposed to the dark side when they went to the planet with
That
the ooze
planet.
thing.
Hmm.
And also you had the dark side beast, and you can't put yourself in a when he finally snaps. You can't put yourself in that situation and not be like, I would have done the same thing, because
No.
he got beaten down by his father,
Hmm.
his brother. He had it was an abusive situation. They wanted nothing to do with him. So of course he was going to snap. There was no way you would be in that situation and not snap. And I think that's why I really like this book, and it really makes me a big fan of Dooku, because yeah, Dooku is a villain. He's the bad guy. He definitely should have died, and not just for the purpose for Vader to come about, but because he was bad guy. But before he turned, he was a hero.
Yeah. I mean,
And I wish we would get more stories with the hero Dooku. And I like this portrayal of Dooku more than I like the portrayal of him in Master and Apprentice, because we see a little bit of the dark side with him in Master Apprentice, but he was already a master at that time.
yeah.
But there was still like a good 40 years of his life where, like I said, I cannot stress this enough. He was a hero.
Yeah, he's basically a hero throughout this book till he kind of leaves the Jedi to be the Count of Serenno after his brother died and all that. And I do love in this book how we learn all the different ways that the dark side might corrupt someone. We always think about, oh, the Sith and Palpatine, they're corrupting a Jedi. No, there's, I think, the Takataka or whatever that weird bird is called. Then they go to the planet, which is very infused with the dark side when they go to try to find some Sith relics. And that's what really starts turning Dooku to the dark side. And he kind of lets his whole power go, and all the Sith lightning comes out. So it's very interesting that he wasn't corrupted by Palpatine since the beginning. He went through a whole life having all these dark side visions through Sifo-Dyas and dark side influences on the planet, the beast on Serenno. So that was very interesting. Like you say, he was a hero to the Republic, to the Jedi, to his planet, all the way till the end. It was very interesting to see that whole turn. And hopefully we do get more. We think, like you said, there's like 40 or 50 years of stories that we can tell with him, with Rel Averos, more with Qui-Gon Jinn. I do hope that they do focus on some of those in the future. So very
I,
great. Yeah, go ahead. So we finish
oh,
up.
I just wanted to say one more thing, and I would like to say that when he walked away from the Jedi Order to hit, it was in good intentions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like you walk away from the book at that point in time when he's like, I'm just going to become a Duke, Duke,
Yeah, maybe also a count.
a count, and I'm going to take care of my people, because if the Republic comes in, they just only want the material that was discovered.
Yeah.
They don't care about the people. So you get the fact that he was disillusioned with the Republic and the Jedi Order, that he walked away from that, which exposed himself. I mean, obviously he opened himself up to the dark side, but he wasn't corrupted yet, which leads me to believe that he at this point in time, he was still good. I mean, obviously he gave into the dark side a couple of times, but he's still good, which leaves the door for Palpatine to come in.
Yeah.
And prey on his disillusionment, which eventually turns him and embrace the dark side. And we see this symbiotically, like when he has the brace on his arm for balance, and when he takes that off, he's immediately exposed. That is symbolic of him. He's like, okay, I know the dark side, I have it control. Then that comes off, and he opens up to the dark side, and that's like a very symbolic thing. The last thing I would like to say is I hope we get a trilogy
Hmm.
with this book. Like we got the first one, the second one could be Palpatine corrupting him, and then the third one could be like what they're doing with the Padme trilogy and have it told in the
Okay.
Clone Wars.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot that they can do with this, and I wish they had those wrappings for Anakin when he started turning to the dark side. Just wrap Anakin on those arm wraps, and maybe it would have helped. But yeah, for you guys out there, if you haven't picked it up, either paperback, audio drama, Dooku Jedi Lost by Cavan Scott, the great Cavan Scott. So pick it up. It's a great read. Even if you're not a Dooku fan, this book will make you a Dooku fan.